Hi guys, Shirley here. Today a seascape. Very simple, and a little figure in there though that complicates matters. But I'll turn the camera, we'll get started. First I'll put some water on the sky. I'll take some Ultramarine Blue. I go right across. I don't mind putting it behind all the branches of the trees. As I come down, I'm going to add a tiny bit of teal colour to it. I'm on a slope, so the paint does fall. And I'm going to indicate some clouds. And then in the distance, down below, beautiful purple. I'll go for a greeny blue, grey. To touch that into these trees. I haven't wet this area. I'll mix a little bit of brown in with the green. I don't like that bright green. And I'll pop that back up to the surface there, where that pencil line is. My goal will be to have that pencil line mainly hidden by the end, by the time I put the very darks on. The thing about the bushland is, let's make a new green. There's constantly different colours of green, it's not just the one. So every now and then I'll even put a bit of red in with that. Put something else over this side. Okay. Go back to that greeny blue colour. And behind there. Now I'll clean my brush, wipe it, and load up with some Burnt Sienna, which is the palest colour. Actually, maybe raw umber as well. Raw umber's not bad. Similar shade, similar hue. So I've got these rocks here. I'll just not be too fussy about those, because the fussiness comes later when you put the darks over the top. Just while it's wet, I'm going to go for the darkest dark browns into the base of that. And the way I get a very dark brown is I add the ultramarine blue to the burnt sienna. You could also use burnt umber. Just want to put it down into the base so that it sort of soaks back up while it's wet. I'll wash the brush out and dry it. I've got my kitchen paper here. The easiest way. And draw that up a bit with just the plain brush, plain wet brush. Okay, now the sand here is very, very light, so I'm going to leave it whitish over there. I don't want to touch into that. Bring it down this way. Make it slightly darker towards the front. And I think I'll add a tiny bit of purple to it, just to give it that interesting colour. Okay. Go back to the purple. While it's wet, I shall add in the darker edge here. This is dry paper, so that's why I can get a very sharp edge over near the water, and then I want to drag that across. Give it that feel of, I'll add a little bit of blue to it as well. And with that blue, I'm going to run that around the edge. Add a touch of brown to it from the front here. I might add some purple into it as well. Yeah. Okay. Back here I'm going to add some purple because it's going to be like a shade under the trees. Bring that out into the sand. Okay, that's a start. I shall now dry that off, and oh, I don't actually need to. I think I can work on this area here without too much problem. So there's two different greens. There's a dark green here and there's a very pale green over here. So what I'm going to do is start by just doing an overall blue. I'll do it up here. No, I'd make it a teal colour. Where's my teal? Okay, that's better. Alright. Then I'm going to leave a fair bit of white. Coming forward, the teal changes to a brown because it's over the top of rocks. It's a little bit confusing. But I like to try to be realistic because that's what makes a painting interesting, when you do the colour you see, not the colour you think it should be. Quite dark in there. And while I've got that colour on my brush, I might just put that in underneath here. So that's a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue. And of course, I can't resist adding the purple. So I'll just tuck that in under there. And then I'm going to blend that back down. Colour that quite dark, clean the brush and pick up some teal blue again, put a bit more teal onto that. I call it teal, but it's probably some sort of green colour. I'll put the correct name up on the either in the descriptions or on the screen. Now we're coming to more white edges, but we're also having to look at this brown colour coming back in. So I'll just put some more. I'll do purple plus purple and burnt sienna, and try and keep away from that white edge. Right. and then the teal comes in again towards the front. It's just a matter of staring at the picture and sort of deciding yourself what colours are going to be working. Okay, I'll just soak that up because it's beginning to run through. I'm getting a few blooms going. While I'm here, I'll get the dark reflections at the back. So very dark green. I'll go for my straight green colour, but I'll add Burnt Sienna to it and Ultramarine Blue back to the green. Yep. So I've got a bit of a thing coming down there. I don't know why I did that. Can't see it in the picture. So there's the dark added in like that. Goes all the way across to there. Now scrape that off the brush. There's a lot there, I don't want to lose it. Then wash the rest out. And with the damp brush, just drag it across the bottom edge, like that. I'm going to zigzag here, on the edge here. That's it. These people might get lost, but I know where they are. I'll be able to put them in. Okay. Beginning to think there's something needed here. I'll go for a slightly different colour. I'll add a little bit of blue there. While I'm at it, that blue can also go in behind there in a slightly unusual way. As much as it's not exactly what's in the photograph. A few stripes of that blue out there, very pale. Now, this area here, I'm going to put some patches of green in. That's the beginning of the foam. And down the bottom here, it's going to be patches of a sort of purpley colour, to tell you the truth, because I might just add white foam over that and that'll look like a shadow underneath the white foam. So a few different colours here. Okay. Well, I've got purple. So all this is happening without me having to stop for a drying session yet, which is fun. Darker purple here. Okay, up. Dry brush required. Take up that liquid. Don't let it run vertically. It's got to be, if anything, push it back to that way, like that. I'm going to put in a few rocks here. I'll start with the big purple shape behind there. These will need probably drying off because I do want, take that right to the edge. I want to put hard edges there. Now, we'll see. It might dry naturally. It is almost summer here. It's not a hot day, but right. I think what I might do here is another rock. I'm going to pretend there's a rock face in here. I do love the rocks because I think they're so graphic and structural. So I'm going to just put that in like that. While I'm here, I can start adding some details for the rocks that are there now. Half closing, and not looking closely at the photograph, I'm half closing my eyes and see where the sun is shining. in the photograph. Giving sort of folds in the landscape where the shadows form, and the dark rocks out to sea have their own shapes. Now, tucking in, using this dark blue and slightly purple, brown, blue, general colour shade. I like to mix this colour. I could use the Moon Glow or I could use Payne's Grey, but when you start using pre-mixed paints like that, you end up with a sameness to them, that they always look the same all over your painting. And sometimes it's good to just, if you vary the quantity, like the proportions of these, the colours that mix up, that go into mixing up the grey, you do get a beautiful harmonious variation. They're the same hues but in different proportions. So I'm just putting in some dark shapes and then blending them out. Okay, it's probably enough said now for me to dry it off. Okay, that took about 2 minutes to dry with the hairdryer. It's not fast, you do have to be patient. Just get this smaller mop for detail, especially at the back here. I just want to put this mountain range in, or hills. They're slightly green, but to tell you the truth, they're probably more blue, so I'll go for that mid blue grey colour. Try and leave a little streak of white there. Yep. Righto, that's a distant headland. I'm going to go very dark over here, here, and down here. First thing I might do is add some browns to the rocks though. And this is going to be fun. They are, usually the rocks on the beach are the same colours as the sand on the beach. And that's usually because they come, the sand is made from the rocks breaking up. So limestone might be different to this sandstone. So I'm just popping in. I'll go a bit darker at the back. A lot darker actually, now that I think about it. Now's the time for strength of colour. Just leaving a little bit of light hitting them. These are fantasy bricks, by the way, they don't exist in the photograph. The trick here would be to try and not repeat the shapes too often, different shapes each time. There's also the odd little bit of seaweed or stone on the beach. I'll put those in now because I've got it in my brush. I'll come back later, add a little bit of shadow underneath those. So I'll go to the darker green up here. I'll try and get a green mixed with a dark blue. Can be a pretty green, but will I add a yellow to it? Maybe I will. Okay. It's a strong green, so I'll start by putting that in. And that will be just with twisty brush. Lumps here and there, and then letting the light through, leaving gaps, lots of gaps. Okay. in the background here, I need to give the feeling it's further away than this tree, and therefore I'll probably add blue to that green, but still try and just put it in little groups here and there. That will keep adding variety. Down here I've got a real purple and green coming in to duck it in behind that area. Now, I think I'll get a rigger. Going to add more blue and more brown to this green to make it just deaden the colour on the blue side. So it's a very dark grey. This would be like a, I wonder if it would be very much like a, what's that word? What's the name for that one? A grey. I'll think of it in a minute. Okay, so here I'm going to be putting in the detail of the trees that are growing there on the surface up the top. Can be a lot of fun. This is where you start to really get. I tend to do little curves for gum trees, which these are mainly. I mean, from a distance they're curved, but in reality, in close up, you'll find they're just little patches of leaves, lumps. I'm just looking for the right brush. Always hard at this stage to got a bit of yellow on my, a touch of yellow on my brush. I'm just going to run it into those shapes and see if I can join some of them together. Even I'm mainly using water, but I just want a little bit of a tint of another colour to make it interesting. Okay, down here. Definitely going over the top of my pencil marks if I can. Out into the open. Right, now these are all going to get joined in to the area below. And I might be using, once again, purple in amongst this. I don't want to make it too dark because it is a fair bit further away. It's a distant headland. So yellow. Okay. While I'm here, just see if I can get some scrapings from a brush or into there to give that feeling of tree branches. Okay. Now, dark blue, dark brown. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to see what I've got here. Yes, just as I remembered, lots of horizontal lines here to draw these stones in. So I tend to draw them like a sketch, as if I'm sketching with a pencil. I just use the brush. So that blue interspersed with much browner lines as well. It looks like black. The idea is to make it look like black. And when you start to feel you're repeating the lines over too much, just join a couple together. That'll make it look less, what's the word? repetitious. Just bleed that up into there. Right. A bit more in the dark over here. And I might just run that in a little random way up into the foliage there, so the dark areas all together. Now this one up here, I know I want to put branches in here, just to separate it from the background. So I'll just indicate a few coming in from the side. And while I've got the dark on the brush, I'll just put a little bit of shadow coming out of there. Play around with that on the sand. And then darker still, really dark again, blue and burnt sienna. Seaweed and rocks up there under the trees. Probably the rubbish falling off the foliage of the trees, like dead leaves. And they get dragged down towards the ocean every time there's a high tide. Okay. I'll just see how the rocks are going here. If I can, once they're dry, I'll be able to put some sharp edges on them. It's still a bit too wet. Of course, me adding more paint doesn't help. Right, next off the rank would have to be, I've got the people in the middle there. I've got a little very dark, I'll go to the grey. He's holding a little doggy, I think. I'm not sure, I haven't looked really closely, but I'll make it out that he is holding a dog into the water. And then dark brown for him, for his body, down like that. And I will definitely be adding some light to him. And then I'll put the other person behind. His friend, his dad maybe. Anyway, as you can see, I don't spend a lot of time on those details. A figure will be a figure. A few horizontal lines here with dark grey on my brush. No, let's make it a dark blue. Just like that. Calm those waters. They are quite calm. And then down at the front here, it's going to be quite messy by comparison because of the foam that's being formed. So I'm just drawing in some lines, wriggly lines here to show movement at the foreground. I have a lot of fun with this. I'm not necessarily following what's in the photograph, but you might have noticed. Sorry about that, but I just make it up. And then here at the foreground, I've got to think about where I'm going to put the shadows. I think they're just going to, on the bottom side of all the white areas, you can just add a little shadow there. It just makes that three-dimensional. Same back here. I have to be fairly careful here. So I'll just sort of use the brush like a drawing pen and just carefully sketch it in. One problem I've done there, I've done three shapes that are all the same. And that's that thing about, I don't know what it is, your brain makes you repeat patterns instead of doing something different each time. So I'll just see if I can break into one of them. Try to remember the colours I use, definitely purple in that. I'll do that. Okay, so it's smaller at the back too. Now let's go for a little bit more horizontal detail there too. Looking closely at the water, it's always handy when you have a photograph to see what happens around this edge. Definitely darkens off in a brown way. So it's obviously the sand underneath that's interfering. It's sort of a greeny brown, interfering, influencing the colour. So I'll just add a little bit of the dark. I've got it on the tip of my brush and I'm just spreading it sideways like that. Go around to about there, then I'll quickly grab some water, just the right amount. It takes practice to soften that top edge and bring it out like that. Okay. Now that I've got that, I'm going to just tip that into the foam area, break up that white, because I can see that's what's happening in the photograph now that I've zoomed in. I'll get some purple. I'm going to touch purple into that so that the colour isn't boring. Right. Once again, just going to trace around. The brush is not really perfect for this, but it's going to give some touch of busyness to that edge. Right. Right, last but not least, I think, oh, I just noticed a couple of twigs up there and branches that are in the distance. But I won't put them in, it's going to be too busy. So for this time I'll go back to the very dark grey with the blue and the brown together. This time I'll go a little bit bluer. See if I can just knock in these stones. Okay, I might need to dry them off, otherwise I can't get those lines going across as I like to. So I'll just grab, oh, I can just see I need to do some more up there too. Anyway, I shall just dry that off, especially the foreground. Okay, honey. What happened? Camera connection lost, let's say it's battery. Oh, it's so hot. Oh. How can I stop it being hot? Do that. I'm just finishing up my video, Bob. I'm videoing, so don't be too noisy, will you? Thank you. Okay. A couple of things I'd like to do. One of them is to warm up the sand. So I'll just clear off some area here on my palette. Kitchen paper. Nice big brush. That water's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. When you use a large vessel of water, it doesn't hold pigment. I'm going to go for the raw umber, I think it is. Anyway, you can see it's a sort of a dirty yellow. Just want to warm up the sand a little bit at the beginning, at the front here. That's better, makes me happier. And using my rigger, one of the riggers, I'll get a very dark grey, almost black. Put these shapes in the rocks here, and that'll be just my imagination, just drawing lines on them. The lines sort of are slightly rounded so that they feel as if it's following the shape of the rock. Try not to put it on the front if you can avoid it. They have cracks. I'm just pretending they have cracks, but the cracks are towards the back. I have got this area behind there which is worrying me a little bit. I might just darken it off. No, I'll pretend it's more rock actually. Here we go. I'll put the yellow on. I'll pretend it's sand. And then rocks here. I'm going to come back with some white over those to differentiate them from the to make them more obvious to what they are. Now I'm just going to shadow some more rocks across the base here, and then going out to sea. Have a quick look at that. Yep. Once again. Now, a lot of traditionalists will assume that will say that I've done these too dark, these lines, and they're probably correct. But if I have areas and now I think because I put them in dark expecting them to lighten, and they don't always lighten. Sometimes the washes lighten, but the actual thick lines that I add don't. So sometimes I need to go back with a wet brush like this and lift them out, soften them up. And you end up with such interesting shapes and areas that you wouldn't have thought to paint in the first place. Just accidental areas of colour end up looking good just by chance. And the chance works both ways. You can, of course, mess it up. But I have a theory about a messed up watercolour painting. It's called an underpainting for an acrylic. And then a messed up acrylic painting is called an underpainting for oils. So you can keep going over it and over it with the next type of paint, if you've got acrylics and oils in your kit. So there, I'm just scrubbing this a little bit to lighten it up. And of course, if you're a professional watercolourist, which I don't pretend to be, by the way, you would have got these shades right in the first place. You wouldn't have ended up having to do this. As I just said, you can end up with some nice effects as well. So while I've got green on the brush there, I'll just add the very soft top edges. There we go. One other thing I think I'll do in hindsight is soften these so-called shadows, scribbles. So just adding a little bit of water to those. It blends them off. See the beauty of some of these colours don't stain the paper and they can be lifted. And one of these days I'll do a video which ones. I couldn't tell you offhand. Right, now I'll get some white out and have some fun. The white is the gouache, designer's gouache. I prefer to use it straight from the tube if I can. So, there's one thing I will do is mix up a little bit of brown for those figures in the water. Have to be a good quality brown. What colour? Looks like a tiny. I'm spoiling this colour here. I'll have to go over it later and just take that off. Unless I need flesh for the next painting. Just a dab on each guy. That'll do. While I've got that there, I'll just see if I can make some light of it. I'll go to a thinner brush. This is where I could play around on these rocks with some beautiful calligraphy marks. Especially on the fronts of them where the sun's hitting. Let's put some in there. So this is now turned into a gouache painting. You couldn't call this a watercolour, not legally, as far as competitions go. The only thing allowed in a competition for watercolour is the only opaque colour is white. So I just want to make that clear to you. So these rocks, look at that beautiful colour, which is the raw umber and white. Because white is slightly blue, you know. It is a cool shade. So when you mix it with a warm brown, it does a lovely, it's not so, okay. It's not so pretty, if you know what I mean. It's a bit rockish. Add some over here. The sun's catching that rock there. And I'll put beautiful similar shades on the front of these. So these are just sandstone rocks. Getting a little bit dry. Need to weten that up. Okay. Anywhere else that I might want that colour before I get rid of it? Right, that'll do. Now I'll go back to the plain old white to take the edge off. The white, this white is what is in the sea, so I like to put a few dry brush marks across that area and around these rocks out here. This loosens up all that slightly tighter area that I had. Now here, I've left some white paper on the paper, but I'll just add so much more. They're mainly dots from a distance, but of course they vary. There'll be clumps, there'll be dots, there'll be dashes. And can follow in like waves, like this. I might have to make the white a little bit smoother, so that means I'll add water to it. I do want to add some lines here, loops. So in reality we've got still water in the background and we've got very busy water at the front here. Oops. Okay. In this area here, I've sort of neglected these little waves. Let's put those in. And do they have any spots on them? Yes, they do. They have little areas of touches of foam that is floating around. And in the background here, sometimes when I put the grey in, I come back over and add the little white parts to the top of it. So the grey becomes the shadow underneath. Okay. I want to add white to the fronts of these rocks. Got the sunlight on them. A little bit up the back there. Now the odd branch here caught in the light. Same in the back here. I think if you look closely at this photograph, there are some areas of branches that are quite white, where they've died and they've gone grey sort of, but with the sun on them they can look white. I'll put some going in that direction too. Alright, maybe a spot of light there. I know this is a bit twee, but I'll just see if I can get that guy's arm in. You can't get too detailed on these figures, you've got to be very general. Treat them like a rock. Okay. I think I'll stop there. I haven't used red at all, but I'll dig out some red for the signature and just find a dry spot. Just down here will do. And that's it. I'll take this edge off straight away. So there's the painting. I hope you enjoyed watching me paint it. I'll put the reference material, of course, on my website, so you can download that if you want to have a go yourself. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.